Hi there, and welcome to another episode of 411 Pop Culture. This is your host, Justin Steele. Tonight, John and I are going to be talking about Game of Thrones, Season 8, Episode 3, The Battle for Winterfell. It was a pretty intense episode full of heartbreaking, exciting, and thrilling moments. Spoilers are ahead, obviously. So, John, what did you think of the episode?
It was intense.
It was very intense.
The first 15 minutes or so were very tense, like before the battle.
Well, I liked that it was pretty much silent for the most
Mhm.
part, lack of dialogue. We did say before the episode began, we decided, what three characters do we want to survive through this whole battle? And we both kind of came to Arya, Brienne, and Dany. Those were our three. They have to survive. I originally had Sansa on there too, and then I kind of switched to Brienne, but either one. I didn't knock Sansa off because I didn't want her there, but it was an exciting episode, and I loved that you kind of had the setup, knowing where each of the characters were for the most part, who was in the crypts, who was out on the battlefield, who was on a dragon somewhere. And there were just so many moments, starting off. I will say, though, one of the things I had with the whole battle, the way that it played out, I kind of wished that it seemed to me that the logic would have been then, as they had this sort of border around, they had the one border where they were going to light it on fire,
Mhm.
and it did kind of stop them for a while, and like the dead for a while, and I feel like if they had just kind of did like 20 of those, then a lot more dead would have been killed, and a lot more people would have survived, instead of basically sending the entire Dothraki army out there, which was a cool effect, having Melisandre come back.
Mhm.
Were you happy to see her? Excited? Nervous?
When I saw her name in the credits, I kind of got excited. That definitely meant that something was going to happen. Like, she usually shows up for a purpose.
Sure.
Uh, and we all know that she likes, commune with fire and whatnot. And that's very important in this battle.
Well, they definitely foreshadowed at the end of last season where she was talking to Varys that she was going to die in this strange country. So,
Mhm.
I had a feeling since we hadn't seen her that it was going to be probably around this time. It didn't play out as most theories I've noticed on YouTube.
Mhm.
The whole Ohorazai, Nisa Nisa sort of background. For those of you that don't know, I mean, I didn't know until I watched these YouTube videos. I'm sure you know. But
Mhm.
long story short, the last time that these White Walkers came, they had to be defeated by the prince then, who was sort of prophesized. And, in order to do that, Ahorazai, had to, stab Nisa Nisa, his wife, and then pull out, the knife, and that's how he killed the main White Walker before. And that obviously did not play out that way in this episode. So I'm sure there's a lot of people disappointed right now out there in YouTube land, but I still thought everything was pretty amazing.
I did. I agree. I felt that the battle was a little confusing, intense in terms of what was going on, but overall I enjoyed it. I agree that they probably should have set up a few more trenches to light on fire.
Well, it just seemed like, because so they had the trench, it stopped them for like a chunk of time,
Hmm.
which I'm sure was just mostly for episodic moments to have like character
Effect.
development and stuff. But I mean, if you're gonna play that was reality, then yes, it stopped them. So literally, if they had just done like 8 more of those, then at
Hmm.
least okay, that would have killed 10% of these walkers, and then another
Hmm.
10%, and so forth. I think it would have at least got like 30 or 40% of those killed, and you wouldn't have lost the entire Dothraki army, etc. I will say that I think the most heroic award goes to the little Mormont girl.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously Arya, but she was crazy good. Her whole moment too, where like when that giant came in, he just kind of knocked her, and you heard her yelp. I was like, oh God, oh God, because up until then I was not detached from the
Hmm.
battle, but I was sort of like, okay, I expect this many people are going to die. This sort of thing is going to happen. But that was one of the first, for me, characters that I kind of really enjoy. Where is it, Lyanna or
Yeah,
okay,
it's
Lyanna
Lena.
Mormont? And he just comes in and kind of knocks her, and I'm like, oh, is she dead? And you heard that, and then she came in and had such an awesome, awesome, awesome little like comeback and got him in the end. Which, in some ways, I don't think they set it up this way, but foreshadows then what Arya kind of accomplishes
Hmm.
later on. And I really, so I would say the hero of the episode, though, was little Lyanna Mormont.
Yep. I she's named after Ned's sister, John's mother, like, and to see her kind of take down this giant who is like drastically bigger than her. It was definitely a David and Goliath
Oh
moment.
yeah, I was just gonna
Like,
say that. Yes, yeah.
it's right out of that. Like, it was awesome.
I also, really enjoyed the Sansa Tyrion moments as well.
It was very touching. Like, they had very touching moments in dialogue.
When she said, you were the best of the husbands, I was like, he was, he was. He was, what were you gonna say?
I mean, compared to Ramsay, yes.
Sure,
I mean,
for sure. Well,
anybody's better.
but even all the like sort of couplings that she's had, you could even say, I mean, she was engaged to Joffrey at one point. What's his name? Peter Baelish was like gearing up for that, and they were all terrible, terrible people. And the one pairing that she sort of got along the way until she met Brienne was, and came back with Theon. I think Tyrion was really good to her, and for being such like a guy, the kind of guy he was, even in those moments. I remember when they got married, you kind of thought for a second, is he going to take advantage of her? Because I'll never come back from this if he does. And he treated her really well and great. And I thought, because of their little moments down in the crypt, I really, I was really nervous for them. I kind of, as we're watching the episode, I kind of kept wanting to forget about them. Mainly because there were also a lot of YouTube theories out there, and this is definitely one of mine too, where I was like, I just feel like the crypts were such a bad idea, because I'm like, you're going to bring these dead people to life. Like, you're down there you're trapped with these dead people. Now, before the episode started, Jon definitely clarified that they are protected for the most part, especially in the books.
Well, that's a theory going around, that the crypts are magic, that there's ancient magics down there.
Yeah, and I definitely was nervous, though. I'm like, if they're not working, though, then that's going to be not the place to be. And it turned out to be. And I really liked getting to see that one little girl from episode 1, I think it was, the one that was kind of like, that reminded Davos of Cherie.
Yeah,
that little girl, I don't know the actress's name, but she's got these intense, stubborn little eyes, and I'm like, she seems like I look forward to seeing what she grows up to be, if she's going to go into acting, because she has a lot of presence for like a 4-year-old, 5-year-old girl, maybe a little older than that. But coming right into the battle, the plan did go awry when there's this clear division where Dany was affected by the Dothraki being attacked, and it really did throw the whole plan off, and you have Dany kind of take off into the sky, and then Jon follow her. I will say that some of all the episodes of the series that we've watched that have premiered, this episode had some of like the most heartbreaking moments, but also some of the most beautiful. Like when they were up in the sky and the moon was kind of there, and it's just these intense moments, and it's breathtaking. And I definitely was like, I just thought this was one of the most beautiful. It had maybe not the most beautiful episode, but definitely had some of the, hands down, the most beautiful moments of the series.
I would say it was a very cinematic scene. Like when the dragons were up in the clouds.
They clearly invested a lot of the budget into that episode, or into that moment of the episode.
Yes.
And what did you think about the sort of like the relationship, between Dany and Jon in this episode?
I felt that Dany was at a strange disconnect with Jon. Like the revelation that, that he told her last episode that he's her nephew, that his mother and father were Lyanna and Rhaegar. I think that she's putting him at a distance as of right now.
Well, I think, too, she's kind of having this sort of, she's in a transition period for sure, where it's kind of like her past and her future. And, a lot of her past is being destroyed. Everything she thought, she's already accepted a lot of the things she's learned that weren't true about her childhood or past. And now Jon kind of brings in this information, and then that all becomes like sort of this manifestation, a symbolic manifestation with the Dothraki just being annihilated. And it's like her past, and like, so we do sometimes tend to run from our future, and when we do, that doesn't usually go well. But it's definitely all this symbolism, I think, of like she's got to like shed those sort of thoughts, her preconceived notions of where things were going, because Dany has become kind of, I think I heard somebody say something like she's entitled. I don't think she's entitled. I think she's earned a lot of what she's achieved.
Most definitely.
I maybe, I wouldn't even say arrogant, but confident. She's confident. And I'm sorry, but when you see a confident woman, a lot of times people want to be like, oh, she's entitled, or bitch, or this or that. And I don't think that. I think she's 100% earned it. And I think, like, but that being said, with confidence, you have to make sure that you still have a certain degree of humility so that you see things clearly. And I think a lot of things are kind of coming at her, which are, not everything's always the way you plan it, and you have to accept that in life, and I think that's kind of what Jon is becoming to her now. I will say of this episode, Jon had some tense moments on the dragon. Definitely when he went after the Night King. But in general, I feel like he didn't really have as much to do as I think we may have all expected, and I'm glad. I'm glad that they didn't do it. I'm glad that Arya kind of had the big moment. I'm glad that, Dany was kind of vulnerable on her own fighting. And I will say, wrapping up this Dany part of it, that I really enjoyed how when, the dragon, what's her dragon?
Drogon.
Drogon kind of flew away, which I couldn't handle any of the dragon stuff. That was the stuff that was messing me up. I'm like, is he alive? I need to know right now what's going on with the other dragon. Dragons, all of them, even the dead one. I'm like, is he okay? I don't know. And I really get affected by that. But when she was kind of on her own, I will say it was good that Jorah kind of came on and helped her. But she then picked up the Steele herself, and she was like, I'm going to fight. And that's the character of Dany, and I think it's really good. We got a cat clawing at something over there. But is there anything else you wanted to say about Dany and Jon?
Not specifically Dany and Jon. I just think that it was really a great thing to see Dany pick up a sword.
Yeah,
and fight
she
alongside
went with it, yeah.
Jorah.
Because she didn't have a dragon. She didn't have an army. I think this is the first time. The last time I could really remember off the top of my head was, even back in the first season when it was her brother kind of came into the tent and was like, it was the first time that she really stood up to him with that belt sort of thing, and she's like, I'm a Khaleesi, don't you talk to me like that. And I think, but normally she's got something on her, something up her sleeve, a dragon or this or that, and it was good to see her, okay, I'm here, I have to fight. All right, I think we should next then talk about Theon and the way that his character has arced from such like an arrogant little shit from the first season, couple first seasons, to through Reek and until, the character that he's become. And I didn't tear up with him because I still think for me, I don't know if he could ever be quite redeemed from the character that he was. And I did marathon the series, so for me it's not that long ago, that many years ago. But it was good to see Bran kind of forgive him in that moment and sort of like him, he decided to save Bran no matter what. And I'm glad the way that it ended up playing with the Night King, I kept thinking for a second that because Theon runs at him, it breaks, he gets stabbed, it falls, but I'm like, he's got to have something, a second thing, which is what kind of works with Arya, and I'm much happier with that. But it was definitely a fitting heroic end for Theon to go. He died a hero, and the person that he always sort of cockily acted like he was, and he wasn't, and he finally got to be that person, and that was really nice.
I mean, in the Godswood, when Bran is talking to him, Theon just realizes that he's about to die. Like, he's not surviving. So he does what he thinks is best, and he charges the situation head on. He dies, but he tried his best.
He really did, yeah. He definitely grew away from being Reek. He found that sort of middle ground of the Theon from the past to the good person he could have always been, and he found that in the end. I was glad to see, Brienne survived. I was so convinced last week when they kept showing stuff with her. I mean, who knows how it's going to end up, but I'm glad she made it through this battle because well, I guess we could talk about, her and Jaime, too, because they had a lot of moments together, and we both were like, oh, one of them's going to die now, when they sort of ended up on the bridge at the top of the castle, and I'm like, oh, the two of them are together, this isn't good, and it ended up, being okay, but I really feel like Jaime didn't really have that much to do with it, so, I mean, I most certainly am not trying to criticize other YouTubers out there, but there's so many theories, and so much was, centered around Jaime's return to Winterfell is going to have this and this, and he really didn't have that much of a part to play. And Brienne, we fell for the whole, it's set up, she's becoming this knight, and now she's going to fall, and she managed to, although, Brienne's screams are so horrific, can only take up for so long, but, when they all kind of swarmed on her, I'm like, that's it. No, but she got through that, Jaime comes in, then Jaime kind of gets trapped, and she comes in, and it was really well done. I really liked that.
I mean, I don't know what I expected from the episode in terms of Jaime and Brienne, but I felt like they really didn't have much to do with...
Yeah, they just really didn't. They were fighting, they were constantly fighting, but you can't give every character a big moment.
But in terms of, the actual battle, that's basically all they did. They weren't key players. They weren't a Jon, they weren't a Dany, they weren't a Jorah.
And I'm glad Grey Worm survived too, I think, right? It seems like he did. We saw it through his viewpoint, and then he went off, but I'm assuming he's still alive, because I think we would have seen if something happened to him.
I guess we'll find out.
Right. There's going to be the next episode, I assume is going to be a lot of, taking count. But I will say, I was going to kind of push this towards the end of this episode, but I want to talk about it now. Arya. And I want to say, first and foremost, the first moment of the next episode better have everybody 100% know what she did in that battle. It'll drive me crazy if it's false modesty on her part, or oh, Danny saved everything or Jon saved everything. No, Arya did. Arya did. And Arya is my hero of the show. This is why I watch the show, is for Arya. For me, the moment that made me a fan of the show, Jon usually picks something, I'll pick something, we kind of swap, and this was his pick because I had never seen it, and so I was kind of watching it like, oh, it's fine, I get it, but it was the moment where Brienne versus the Hound, that was the moment I became a fan of this, and because it was all wrapped up in Arya and her sort of arc, and I just was so delighted to see, like, her kind of watch things a lot. She had a couple of playback moments where, like, she said to Sansa, just stick it with the sharp end or the pointy end.
Use the pointy end. That's what Jon told her.
Correct, yeah. Needle, when he gave her needle. And I remember some things. He's usually the one about his back. Oh, when it comes to Arya, I pretty much have it down. So she has her moments there with Sansa. Then she's, like, fighting and she's being all Arya warrior. But then I really liked that we got to see a little bit of her, like, fright, vulnerable. And the whole sequence, with the exception of the Lyanna Mormont scene, which I thought was the best scene of the whole thing. I mean, there were of a lot of really good scenes, but Arya, the whole in her, I don't know if she was in the library or what, but those moments I really liked a lot.
The horror aspect of
correct, yeah, because it did make me think of like Halloween H2O when Jamie Lee Curtis was under the tables in the school and she's like under the desk, and it was definitely that kind of thing. Arya then when she kind of gets there with the Hound, and I loved that the Hound just kind of kept picking her up, and I was like, just go. Usually I want Arya to be the tough one and all that, but I was like, no, pick her up, get her out of this area, get her out. And when she kind of gets sent off, I mean, as the scenes kept going, I kept saying at the end of every scene, I think I was like, okay, so where's Arya at? What is she doing? She's gonna do something. Is she gonna be the one to take the Night King out? Is she gonna be the one? Because I did think, I'm like, well, they're gonna give it to Jon probably, but Arya would be good. Arya would be good. And then whoosh, just that over the shoulder shot where she came in, and that was perfect. That was perfect because of Bran and her. Like the first moment, it made you think of something else, and I want you to say it, but it made me think of just how that first shot, how like Bran was doing the archery practice and kind of he was missing, and then Arya kind of shot it right over him and she got it, and I thought it was sort of like a reference to that, but you said it was
it has more to do with the dagger that
the
Arya
dagger
used.
was what you were talking, because
it was the dagger used in the attempt to kill
Bran,
but in this case it was used to save Bran,
which is very poetic, and it was interesting. Yeah, I liked how it all kind of played back, and it is one of those moments that make this one of the great shows. I hear a lot of people like this is the greatest show of all time. I don't know if I agree with that. 6 Feet Under, another HBO show, will always be, I think, the greatest show of all time. But this show is very well crafted for having so many characters, on so many different planes and levels, and to have those threaded moments kind of come back. I'd say it does a really good job.
Maybe the greatest fantasy show.
Sure, I could get behind that. I really did like, again, just to clarify, Sansa and Tyrion down the crypts when he kind of kissed her hand, and they just kind of giving each other looks. And I did like what Missandei kind of said, where she was like, you're right, there'd be no problem if the Dragon Queen wasn't here, we'd all be dead, and she's right, and that is very much Sansa needs to realize that. But I did like kind of that shot just behind the tomb, and it's Sansa and Tyrion, and they're gearing up to go. And again, for me, I enjoy watching all the YouTube theories out there, but it does kind of ruin it in some moments where I'm like thinking, okay, so so many people were convinced that Viserys was going to die down there, and then you see him alive, and I'm like, okay, so that didn't happen, and it takes me out of the scene for a moment. But I did, I was really happy to see him still there, because that's also the other part of Melisandre's that was the scene with him that she proclaimed she's going to die in this country just like Viserys. So we have to see, what's going to happen with him. But we haven't seen Cersei in a while, and I am really happy that the series decided to deal with the White Walkers first, and then now it's going to be the Cersei battle instead of the other way around, because I could see it back, a couple seasons, I could see it going either way, and it's such a more, we've grown to we've grown to love to hate Cersei, and so it'll be interesting just to see how that all plays out, because some people were on the boat of if the Night King would win. I guess there's some people that would have been like okay with that as the ending. I don't know. I guess this series you come to expect anything, and I probably wouldn't have cared for that, but I'd rather see it become like between these characters that, like Cersei, that we don't know how we always feel. But what do you think?
In terms of Cersei, I think that this next episode will deal a little bit with her preparations going forward, and that we'll see some kind of the aftermath of the Winterfell battle. They'll tie up some ends there, I think it might be a more relaxed episode.
Sure.
A
Which I'm
more
totally fine with. I like having
even
them.
kill.
Yeah.
And then I think the fifth episode will be another battle-ish episode.
Well, that's what, and that's what I'm saying when it comes to whether I think this is the greatest show of all time. One of the things I do think it makes it a contender for that role or that title is that it does know how to tell a story. Like I said, there were some complaints out there about, in the last episode we talked about some complaints that it's not like fighting battle, 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 and instead there's these sort of slower moments. But that's how you tell a story. That's what makes it so exciting that you can have an entire episode that's all battle and you actually are like captivated. Because otherwise it does become monotonous, or you're just kind of like, well, who cares? Whose side are you on, for what arbitrary reason? Instead, you actually have legitimate reasons. But is there anything else you wanted to kind of talk about in this episode?
No, I think we covered most of what I really wanted to discuss.
Yeah, I think a lot more people survived than I thought would, and I'm glad with the people that did survive. I'm sad for Theon, but I think he died in a heroic way, and he was kind of a terrible character for a really long time. He's redeemed himself, but I'm at peace with that. I'm sad for Jorah, but he also kind of served a purpose too. I think that the way he would have wanted to die would be in Dany's arms, essentially protecting her, and I thought like I said, I still think the hero award goes to little Lyanna Mormont, who took out this giant in the most like brutal way, and it was fantastic. I would like to just real quick discuss the whole dragon sequence. Like I was so upset with them, but I thought it was a beautiful, fantastic sequence where I was like, which one is getting hit? I don't know. And those were definitely the tense moments for me. Well, and let's talk real quick though about, we did lose the Night King, is one of the big characters that we lost. Are you happy with how that turned out?
Absolutely. Like, I was wondering if they were going to draw it out till like the next episode.
I was worried about that, yeah.
And you're always a fan of things happening like quickly. Like, you don't like things drug out too long. And I was really happy that they kind of just got to that point.
Yeah,
like,
I don't mind being strung along a little bit, but at a certain, like, I'm like, if we're gonna have this huge battle, then by the end we need to know, is he done or done? I thought it was good. And then we took a quick break, and John was asking me a question about whether or not, will you ask your question?
Jon is immune to fire like Dany.
And we're debating about it because it's not about just necessarily being a Targaryen, because her brother Viserys, like she said in the episode where the gold crown or whatever, she said
fire cannot kill a dragon.
And it killed him. And then Jon was kind of like, well, but molten gold's a little different. But I said, well, Dany did confirm though that would be enough to do it. And so that is an interesting question. What do you think out there? Do you think that Jon is flammable or not? I guess that's a good question. I mean, what in context do you think it means? If whether he is or not, do you think that means that he should be the leader?
No, not at all. It was just a curious question that I was pondering as he was being held at bay by the dead dragon.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's interesting because I did like that it was kind of an interesting, the whole when she was shooting the Night King with fire, and I'm like, oh, it's not gonna do it. Like I was pretty sure it wasn't. Me, I don't know why, but I was like, yeah, it's not gonna do it. And he pops out, and then all those people jumped. The dead jumped on the dragon, and I'm like, I don't like that either. And I'm really defensive of the dragons. They're besides Arya and Brienne, maybe, I think that they're my favorite parts of the show.
I mean, you've seen them grow for 7 seasons.
Yeah. Like, it was hard for me when she had to lock them up, and seeing his face, like the way that I really liked how the episode ended for Dany, where it kind of like curled around
to console her.
Yeah, yes, because it's a sad moment.
It is his mother. Like, she is the mother of dragons. And
Yeah.
I mean, her as a character, she's always been kind of perceived as a motherly type.
Yeah.
I mean, when she freed the slaves, they all crowded around her and were screaming Misa, Misa, which is mother. And in her tongue,
right.
like, it's always been kind of her character trait.
All right, I think we did cover everything. It's kind of hard to analyze an episode like this because it is just they lived, they died, battle. They lived, they died, they battled. I thought we were going to have a lot more to say, but what did you like about this episode? Are there any characters that you wish had survived of the groups that died? Do you think their battle plan could have been different? Are you excited? I know you're excited about what's coming up, but are you pleased with the way the Battle of the Winterfell turned out? Thanks for joining me, John. This is another episode of 411 Pop Culture, where real people talk about really everything. Thanks.